Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we're here live at the World Trade Center in Seattle. We're going to be talking about everything that is edibles today. It's day one at HempFest. I've got some amazing guests, starting with Dan Devlin of Zoots. Dan is a co-founder of Zoots, maker of a handcrafted small batch treat made with premium infused cannabis paired with unique blends tailored to your interests, desires, and intentions. Their zootologists carefully extract the essential oil of the cannabis plant in a contaminant-free environment using their proprietary cypress extraction method. The closed-loop process captures THC using organic cane alcohol and a cold fusion process, so you can be assured that each serving is consistent. And while everyone experiences cannabis individually, Zoots is about having a good time without feeling uncomfortably stoned, which is what sets Zoots apart as a purveyor of fine cannabis edibles. And Zoots was recently acquired by Washington-based Ionic Brands for a total of $11.6 million. Ionic, with a market cap of about $16.5 million, trades on the Canadian Securities Exchange as IONC and on the over-the-counter OTC markets as IONKF. Dan, thanks for being here.
You bet. Glad to be.
Remotely with us is Bob Eschino with Incredibles. Bob is co-founder and president of Medically Correct, whose trusted brand, Incredibles, is known for having the most consistent and award-winning infused products in the cannabis industry. Bob is responsible for the company's sales, marketing, and national expansion. As founding member of the Edibles Council through Cannabis Business Alliance, the Colorado Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, and the Colorado Cannabis Manufacturers Association, Bob has helped shape the next wave of cannabis rules and regulations for the cannabis industry federal level. Medically Correct prides itself on helping educate the public about responsible edible consumption and the emerging cannabis industry. Bob, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And also remotely is Patrick Ian Moore of Edible Magazine. Patrick's the editor-in-chief of Edibles Magazine and the chief operations officer of Edibles List Manufacturing and Distribution. He started out as head dispatch at Speedweed and went from there to be working as a product development and marketing specialist at W Vapes. The edibleslist.com is a source for information and reviews on medical marijuana edibles, dispensaries, doctors, and all else in the legal cannabis community. Edibles Magazine is a source for credible and relevant news with everything related to the cannabis industry. Their mission is to help medical marijuana patients locate smokeless medication alternatives. They want to help get the medicine in the hands of the patients they need it. They connect patients, vendors, and dispensaries, and patients can now save time and money locating their favorite edibles and new consumable products while being able to rate and review, adding their valued option to our online community. Staying tuned for their best of Edibles List awards, and stay tuned for the topicals, tinctures, and other awards that they have. So Patrick Ian Moore, thanks for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much.
So Bob, how do you compete when seemingly you have only 3 hours in a single day of the week to make sales? Let me give you some data behind that. So in August of 2016, Headset reported that on Friday, 1 in 5 baskets contain edibles, a higher rate than any other day. Friday, between the hours of 3 and 5, accounted for 30% of the total basket volume in that month. Candy and chocolates were half of all the sales, and a little over half of those baskets consisted of only a single item. So now we're starting to see 1,500, 2,000 SKUs in these stores, and bud tenders are turning over, faster than a leaf. So how do you compete? How does a brand compete when seemingly you only have 3 hours on a single day of the week to make your sales?
That is the $1 million question right now. It's something that we're struggling with. Colorado seems to have a new edibles manufacturer every week, right? And because there is such saturation in this market, the only way they can get on the store shelves is to cut their cost, right? So people are buying their way onto the shelves, which puts pressure on established brands because now we're forced to remain competitive. So it's really driving the profits down, right? And then we're dealing with 280E, right? So you've got that tax headache on top of the fact that you've got shrinking profits, and it's difficult. And yeah, the fact that I had heard a stat that every 12 months, the average dispensary loses all of their employees, right? I think I was told like 3 months is kind of the average for a dispensary to keep a bud tender.
That's crazy.
Right. And if you look at that, it's an entry level position, right? It's an entry level position that's not a tax write-off, that's got to go to someone over the age of 21. Right, so these are minimum wage jobs for adults, basically, right? That's not a tax write-off for the business. So it's hard to pay more. It's hard to offer benefits because those are not tax write-offs. It's hard to do the right thing because we're struggling with 280E and the way we're taxed on a daily basis, right? My effective tax rate last year was 80%.
What?
Yeah, that's ridiculous, right? And that's what we're up against daily. And, the salaries, we've got the luxury of being able to write off cost of goods sold, which is still a small part, right, of what we're doing on a daily basis. So, we do have some tax write-offs, and with some tax write-offs, I still had an effective rate of 80%. So, it puts pressure on the entire system from top to bottom, right? When it comes to employees, when it comes to profitability of your products, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to, having to play, really the mature market game, which Colorado is now a mature market. There was a time where if you were making products and you could fill orders, successfully, you found your way onto the shelves. But there is so much competition here, and there is an abundance of cannabis. So, we struggled for years just being able to find enough cannabis to keep up. It's no longer a problem in Colorado. So anybody can come in, anybody can get a license, anybody can buy oil cheaper than I can make it now, right? And they're putting subpar edibles on the shelves. And the only thing they have to sell is price because they don't have any brand loyalty. And that's the current situation in Colorado. And, coming up with solutions to combat that it seems like it's a daily fight.
It is interesting because Colorado is vertically integrated. So they have lower taxes and yet higher prices than what we've seen in Washington, where owners are separated by law. So retail owners are separate from the producer processors, and yet we have a higher tax and a lower cost of product.
We're separated here.
All right.
Yeah. You can have standalone grows, you can have standalone MIPS, you can have standalone dispensaries.
That's
on the rec side, right? But even on the med side now, we're trying to mirror the med and the rec sides a little bit closer. So I think they've moved off of patient counts now for medical grows. So there was a little bit of a shortage for medical product, and a lot of people moved out of the medical markets because there was such an abundance in the rec market. But some of that stuff should be shifting. There's taxes right in between those levels, but you've got massive grows here in Colorado that aren't attached to a MIP or a dispensary. And 5 years ago they were knocking on my door and saying, "Hey, I'm building a 100,000 square foot greenhouse." And I'm like, "Okay, and then what?" "Well, then I'm going to sell you my cannabis." I'm like, "You're not going to sell it to me. I might buy your trim, but I'm not going to buy your cannabis at $2,500 a pound, right?" And every dispensary had their own grow, right? So, and nobody really wanted to buy this cannabis because, there was a lot of people who didn't know what they were doing. They were coming into the market. They started growing cannabis that wasn't very good, and then they couldn't sell it. So, all of a sudden everybody got a MIP license and everybody started extracting. And now it's just, they're just dumping oil onto the market because that's their only outlet and everybody's trying to keep the doors open.
right. To clarify, though, in California and Colorado, you have an option to be a producer or processor or retailer or all three. Whereas in Washington, you don't have that choice. You can't own from seed to sale, which makes it incredibly competitive. And that was going to be my point, is that
got it.
Washington is really, really competitive because you don't have the same people growing and selling.
Sure.
And so with,
I would think, I don't know, from my standpoint, it might make things easier, right? Because everybody's on a level playing field there, right? You're not having that issue in Colorado. Would you say that's correct?
I'd say it's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think I think overall having the ability to be in retail is certainly a plus because of the margin there. You look at that, but and we can't have any ownership, any cross ownership. Even our investors can't be crossed over, and I think that's a real limitation, quite frankly. I think I think Washington's behind the times in a lot of that. However, long-term wise, I don't think vertical integration is a winner.
No.
I mean, it's, you're going to have your farmers, you're going to have your producers, and you're going to have your retailers. And the key to me, and I think Bob, you probably agree with this, the number one that is really going to have the main strength is the producer. the converter of the product, not the farmer and not the retailer. Right now, the retailers are
follow normal industries, right? You know, it's interesting when, you know, especially on like a regulatory level, you know, when you're going and you're trying to talk to regulators about cannabis, and they expect you all to have the same goal, to all have kind of the same mindset. And it's not. It's agriculture. It's, you know, it's extraction, it's technology, it's mass production of food products, and it's retail, right? You don't ask the alcohol industry to speak with one voice, right? The people who grow the hops are different than the people who are at the breweries, who are different than the people who are distributing, and they're different than the people who are at the liquor store, right? But, you know, for some reason, we're expected to have one voice because we're all cannabis. And it just doesn't work that way. You know, it's eventually going to go the way of normal industry where, you know, you're going to have, cannabis is going to be a commodity at some point, right? The walls are going to come down, and I'm going to be buying stuff from Oregon. I'm going to be shipping 5-gallon buckets of oil from wherever into my production facility, you know, so I can manufacture products here, and then I can finally, you know, automate, right? Once I can ship over state lines, I can actually become a real business, right? And go out and get a loan and justify a $500,000 piece of equipment. Because if I bought that now, it would be on for 4 days a month, right? I would make all the products I need for Colorado in a few days, and that piece of equipment would just sit there idle, right? So, but eventually we will become a real industry, right? And be able to ship over state lines and be able to have, you know, the tools that other industries have, right? And we can start becoming more efficient, and we can really start to drive the cost down. You know, I tell regulators all the time, my competition is the black market. It's not the licensee down the street, right? I need to be competitive with the guy on Craigslist selling a 300 milligram edibles for half the price of my 100 milligram edibles at retail, right? So it seems counterintuitive to them, but the reason you don't make alcohol at your house is because you can walk down the street and get any flavor, any size, any potency you want at any time for cheap, right? There is no incentive to have a black market alcohol, you know, market, right? It's not there because the incentive isn't there. Until we get that way with cannabis, right? Until you take that financial incentive away from the black market, we're going to continue to lose as a licensed regulated entity.
So with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. I want to thank my guests. We have Bob Eschino with Incredibles. Also remotely is Patrick Ian Moore with Edibles List and Edibles Magazine. And also here is Dan Devlin with Zoots. Congratulations on the recent acquisition, by the way.
Thanks a lot for having us on and ability to talk about what we love, edibles.
So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.